Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, everybody. I hope that everyone is certainly trying their best to stay cool this summer, and as you can certainly tell on screen that the pond is not doing so well with the midst of a drought that we're dealing with here in Texas. Thankfully, I can say, however, that since the time of recording this video, there has been quite a bit of rain, so I can at least enjoy the significant amount of heat with that extra dash of humidity. But the subject of today's reflection, as you can tell in the topic and title of today's video, is on the subject of the attention economy, sometimes also called the attentional economy. The idea in which our ideas in the marketplace of ideas, although really non-existent, has seen information being condensed down almost in a mimetic fashion for the shortest amount of time that we can get our eyes and ears and minds attached to something, and it is often algorithmically boosted for engagement, meaning that these ideas are subsidized by the very companies in which the platforms for these ideas put them out. All of them, of course, are fighting for that very thing, your attention. What can hook you in? Is the personality attractive enough to catch your eye? Is their voice alluring enough to do so? Is the ideas that they're putting out something that you're interested in, or already fits the bill for your preconceived notions of ideas and principles of the world? It is sort of a race to the bottom, the lowest common denominator for how things can get out, in the same way that we find that right-wing memes in America, as well as all over the internet, can always attach themselves to that knee-jerk reactive truth of nature, and why it's so easy to condense them in the ideas of words like based, or even the simple gigachad to do so. Whereas oftentimes in trying to deconstruct or move ourselves out of modernity into a more postmodern hellscape requires walls and walls of texts to often explain the leftist position. Now, this isn't to say that ideas about media has become explicitly nothing more than 30 to 90-second bits to garner your attention, although we can see from commercials, advertisements, sponsorships, and even the various platforms that we may exist on certainly often orient around the short form. Vine, for instance, going towards that of TikTok, at least in terms of its evolution and how we've seen our media evolve, to where videos all over the time are looking to compete with that very model, how to get your attention quickly, to make you laugh, to buy a product within 30 to 90 seconds. Even YouTube itself has done this to a significant degree with the YouTube Shorts function that has been recently added in the last couple of years. And all in terms of doing so, it doesn't mean that long-form media has disappeared. It certainly has its bulwarks, but I've noticed when talking to individuals who listen and read and consume long-form content that they'll try their best to do so when watching a video or listening to audio to put it at 2 times speed in order to use up less of their time when consuming this media and trying to ingest it. Now, this isn't to insult those who use it. Obviously, your time is important and you should use it wisely, but I can't find myself ever getting attached to the idea of using 2 times speed. I like to go back and try to listen to something over and over again, watch the facial expressions of how people respond and react to ideas, and sometimes I simply feel like 2 times speed is both a disrespect and something that is both disrespectful for my mind and its ability to think and engage on these ideas. Even in long-form videos that I put out myself, at least per my own anecdotal purview of my own analytics, I can see how longer videos or streams that are 2 hours or longer can sometimes only have maybe about 20 to 15 minutes consumed. Now, this isn't to insult my audience. Obviously, you all have your time on your hands and you're very intelligent, especially if you're over here. But it's something that I've noticed that even long-form content, seemingly the bulwark of our ideas, how we can stream and put things out, oftentimes doesn't have as much consumption unless you were to catch it live. Now, it is easy to get sucked into the attention economy, how we can easily fall ourselves into the siren's call and not lose our sense of mind or self because we're tied to the mast of the ship, just like Odysseus did. However, what comes to my mind, is that many people, without any sort of teleological grounding, no religion, no higher purpose, no tradition or set of ideas and principles they hold themselves to, they have no mast of the ship to tie themselves down to, and are happy to jump into the water and lose their mind, soul, and their ability to really comprehend and understand the world to that siren's call of the attention economy. How often do we find ourselves drowning in the waves of information, the latest amount of takes, or letting something go on autoplay just to see where the algorithm might take you? Now, this may happen if you decide to have music on and have a playlist going, or simply let the algorithm take you musically. But when it comes to, say, politics, or culture, or even religion, Lord only really knows where you might be going. This is why I think it's important to have a higher set of principles, or at least in my own perception, God as at the center of all things. Failure to do so can oftentimes leave us only deracinated, despondent, and constantly engaging with the latest amount of takes and information that pour into us, losing ourselves to the vast oceans of information, all striving for our own ideas, all striving for our attention, our eyes, our ears, our mouth, how our body reacts. And in turn, underneath that ocean of information, all garnering for your attention, you are drawn and quartered by the siren's call asking you to be aware of everything all at once and at all times. Now, we're not omnipotent, and many times we can find ourselves wondering how on earth did we miss these things? How were we not aware of this latest trend, or how did we not know about this personality? And I've often seen for a lot more younger men that it leaves them in a state of anxiety of not knowing what may come next. Obviously, with current trends and listening to individuals that you find to be valuable with information, especially those in a more educational standpoint or with subject matter experience, we know how to prepare for things. This doesn't mean that you have to catch on to the latest trend. You don't have to understand what the latest personality is saying. In fact, I do think that we're very close to an influencer bubble when it comes to just regular individuals consuming media. It doesn't seem very sustainable as individuals try and engage in that parasocial relationship to garner your attention at all times. But on that nature of influencers and the individuals that we talk to, content does very much affect culture. We often see us ourselves using words like doom scrolling or outrage porn or reaction videos to describe how the political zeitgeist of the day might reflect and review things, whether on the left or the right, a term I'm growing further and further dissatisfied with using. However, this outrage or doom porn that we often see does serve a purpose to let you know where things are currently going. However, I would be mindful and trying to tell you that maybe you should also treat it like any other kind of pornography. It does have its harmful effects and can put you into a mindset that that is the world 24/7. This is why I've spent so much of 2022 trying to put more and more attention on the problem of digital deracination and the issue that can come with being despondent and overly online. Not to insult you by simply saying touch grass and go outside and log off, but it does certainly help if you have some sort of teleological grounding first and foremost in your life. I tell people all the time, both on this video and others, that it is important that if you are on your phone all day or in front of your computer all day and that's where you live your life, that please pay attention to the reflection on your screen when you turn it off or go to bed that night. And please know that that reflection that you're seeing, whether hideous or attractive, is you, and how you treat yourself and compose yourself to the rest of the world is important. If you lose your mind constantly in the demiurge of attention swirling around you, trying to grab at you and trying to take control of you, then you will lose yourself to the things that are actually important. Again, it does have its harmful effects, doom scrolling and outrage porn. Please treat it like any other kind. But when it comes to that oftentimes a worrisome struggle of trying to know all things or being aware of all trends, you're not going to know everything at once. As I've mentioned before, it's really a great privilege and a pleasure in my review of international relations and geopolitics that I can't be aware of all things at all times. I have numerous individuals that follow or subscribe to the channel that will DM me or email me about certain things that are going on in their part of the world, so I have a greater understanding of the world writ large. After all, I don't live in Ethiopia, I don't live in Egypt, I don't live in Germany or Japan or Poland or even Russia to know what on earth is actually going on. I try my best not to panic over those things. To be anxious over it all would leave me in a state of despair, and I find that to be the case oftentimes when we do doom scroll or search through the outrage porn. Now, this isn't to put down anyone who does that. Obviously, it serves an important and vital purpose to understand just how crazy things are going on outside. But I find myself constantly looking back and looking towards the chapter in the book of Matthew, and especially 6:34. Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious unto itself. Sufficient for the day is its own evil. And I try my best not to worry about what may come, not to say that I'm not preparing or looking forward to knowing that I have to stock up on things or prepare accordingly to whatever the latest cultural issue is and how the law may be evolving right before my very eyes. But I certainly do try my best, however, to not lose my mind and to lose my cool when someone is providing me new information or informing me that a specific idea or take has been updated and evolved in such a way that we are moving in a different direction. But on top of all of the issues of the attention economy's great purpose through its algorithmic boosting, the way that it can hamper and create its own language, and where you are specifically attentive to how that language is being used, well, that means you're learning another language. It means that you are learning the very capacity to explicitly communicate with others who share their attention spans to those specific things. Now, this does have its benefits. It allows us to understand certain terms, where the culture is going, and things like that. But it also means, however, that our ability to be social in the real world, whether with family, a significant other, or most importantly, with our actual jobs, unless you are one of the lucky ones who can do this full time, in order to function. After all, if your mind is so melted for attention that your attention span cannot stay focused on your own actual work and your own livelihood, or that you can't even communicate the language that is right in front of you, then we're putting ourselves in a position of significant danger. This is where you really do get to the digitally deracinated Zoomer or millennial whose time is spent more and more on social media rather than focusing on their own work. But this isn't just explicitly a younger generation problem, especially as we consider some of the social media that we use is now more explicitly towards older generations. Lord knows that Facebook, or Meta, or whatever it is called these days, are a great part offering documentation of the Boomer and the Gen X project in terms of generational use of social media. Billions of hours are wasted collectively each month at the workplace in the United States spent on social media. Productivity is down to such a point where now phrases like quiet quitting are being used not only to do the bare minimum, but to do the bare minimum and then get paid to sit on your ass for the next 6 or 4 hours or so while scrolling through social media. Now, this isn't to say that we can't have a better use of our time, Lord knows we certainly could, but it does tell us how the attentional economy can suck us away from our own jobs and livelihood, and rather are having ourselves focused more so on the things that catch our eye and interest. It weakens our ability to be disciplined. We talk about discipline a lot on the right, its respect for hierarchy, our ability to control ourselves, our urges, and Lord knows so much more. However, in that regard, it becomes more and more important to understand the simple fact of the matter is that to be disciplined, it isn't just within your body, it isn't just with how much you can lift, how far you can run without getting winded, or how well you can track the stars and understand your own location or relationship to your peers, but it also means your mind. There is an unseen warfare that is happening right before us, not just a spiritual one, but also one for our eyes, our ears, our mouths, and all of our senses. If we can lose ourselves to the sensations of the latest trend, lose ourselves to the greatest trends of reviewing things and hate watching and doing so just to watch how the culture decides to eat itself alive, and the idea that if we can do so, it can prop something else up in the name of equity or a more globally minded world, then all that we will do is be unwilling participants to a project that is very much set out to our own destruction. And this is why I find Matthew 6:34 to be so important. We have to focus on ourselves and the day. What are we doing today? Are we going to spend more and more time losing ourselves to trends and things that garner our attention, whether it is our own niche hobbies or simply the latest bit of outrage? Yes, it's important for us to keep track of these things, and it is a difficult balance. This is why I find it to be more important to have a hold of actual physical media right in front of me. That way, I'm not reading an ebook or PDF. Not because I don't mind reading those things if it's inaccessible, but because I know just how easy the temptation it is to look on another tab and start researching an obscure word and wondering as where I went down the rabbit hole 3 hours later. Not to say that I do that all the time, but I certainly do know that that is a trouble that I myself face, and I know that I'm not alone in that regard. Content certainly affects culture, and I hope that this short little rambling reflection on the world around us, especially in an ever-present online one, where more and more youth and more young men are being raised in a time of ever-present social media, ever-present devices listening to them for targeted advertisements and cultural apps for them to use, a time before 2007, a time before Facebook, is now burning like a memory wasting away somewhere, and the piles of wood that are being used in an old man's fireplace right before he zones out and falls asleep for the last time. The attention economy, whether it is intentional or not, is illustrating how your mind can be hijacked. The information age also has the attention age. For those that argue, especially in the more globalist side of things, that humans are hackable beings, the attention economy is a very worthwhile thing to pay attention to that backs up their thesis. If we're only paying attention for a shorter and shorter amount of time, we can't focus on the long form, we don't have the prudence of forethought to look ahead, then we are certainly in trouble. However, I think it is important to tie ourselves to the mast of both religion, telos, our own principles and traditions, because failure to have that mast tied to ourselves, and for us to tie ourselves to it, we will lose ourselves to the siren's call of the latest trend, the algorithmic boosted idea of which personalities and influencers and sponsorships that may come next, and we too will become just as mindless, deracinated, and despondent as the greater cultural purview and milieu that we see before us and oftentimes make videos and streams about. So as I wrap up on this real talk, I certainly hope that you do enjoy the fact that there are fish in this pond that I can catch, but also on the grounds that we must pay attention not only to the things that we consume, but also what we do with our time. Calendars and schedules are important. What we pay attention to is important. The content certainly affects the culture, and we must have the ability to be more social and outgoing in the real world, just as we can be in providing helpful links, book reviews, and resources to our fellow friends online. With that, I'll see you around in the next video. I certainly hope that you enjoy the fishing that you saw on screen today, and I hope that you all take better care of your mind about how you spend your attention and your time. Spend it wisely. After all, if these people think that you are hackable, then you must have the discipline and forethought to defend yourselves against the trends and ways that you can fall into their very routines. This is just one facet of unseen warfare, both spiritual, mental, and psychiatric. Prepare yourselves accordingly, because the attention economy will only continue to speed things up and accelerate. And knowing how that happens is the best way that we can prepare our minds for the future, as well as our friends and family. Take care, everyone.